Sylvania City Council for April 18th, 2022 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fry.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Hanum.
Here.
Mr. McCann.
Here.
Mr. Richardson.
Here.
Ms. Stowe.
Here.
Mrs. Westfall.
All 7 members of City Council are present, therefore a quorum does exist. We welcome our guests this evening, and you're up high in the agenda. You're already on our board over there, but in the meantime, please join us for our Pledge of Allegiance, this meeting led by Council President Mr. Fry. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item 3 is additions to the agenda. I have none this evening. Mr. Fry.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Members of City Council. Hearing none. Mr. Sanford.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Snore.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schroyer. And Mr. Aller.
Nothing.
And Mrs. Brining.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and our agenda for the evening is approved. Agenda item 4 is to approve our meeting minutes from the last meeting on April the 4th. You'll find at your spots this evening a substitution. The ones that came out in your council packet had a typo in them. Please remove those, and we are going to act on the ones that were at your council places tonight. It was just a typo in there to make it correct. Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move adoption of the meeting minutes for the council meeting of April 4th, 2022 as submitted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve those council meeting minutes of April 4th, 2022 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and those meeting minutes are approved. Agenda item 5, we are pleased to welcome to our council meeting tonight Laura Kaprowski, the CEO of TARDA. And I'll let you make whatever introductions you want to make when you want to make them.
Thank you. Good evening. Before I get started, my presentation, I would like to take a moment to introduce Mary Morrison, who is the City of Sylvania representative on the TARDA board, as well as our board vice president. So she has served just an incredible and important leadership role in the last 2 years in the transformation of TARDA. So
Now, President Fry, I want to say it's been both an honor and a privilege to quite a year since we've been here. Presentation, and that time it was then CEO Kim Dunham. Have our own native Sylvanian, Laura Kaprowski, serving as CEO, and with her this evening is Director of our development. Are here to update you on what's been going on. Of TARDA. It's been wonderful for TARDA. It's going to be wonderful for Sylvania, as you'll see with.
Swipe it.
To the iPad.
all right. So, great. So as Mary said, I want to also thank Mayor Stowe and members of City Council, because your support, I mean, I know it's been many years that we worked hard. This community, you understood how important a high-functioning, modern transit system what it means to residents, to businesses, to really the future, the vibrancy of City of Sylvania and this region. So we did it. And what does this mean now that issue 12 has passed? Okay. So issue 12, it took effect April 1st. It was based on when the sales tax actually went into effect, which was April 1st. According to the state, they set the rules when the sales tax is enacted, which is one of 4 times per year. This meant now we can expand, as we promised, issue 12 across all of Lucas County and City of Rossford. And Neil, when he talks about TARTA next, he will talk about our long-term plan of how we're going to address that and why we really need your input and ideas about how we create that expansion. So the 0.5% sales tax, as I said, went into effect April 1st. Our property tax ended January 1st, 2022, no more collection of property tax. But again, it's interesting how the state of Ohio sets up property tax collection, very much retroactive, very much in arrears. So while we were providing service all of 2021, we don't even begin to receive 2021 property tax until this year. So I want to bring that up because with the second payment of 2021 property tax, which will be due at the end of July, there will be a notice on resident or property owners' bill that does have TARTA tax, property taxes listed. We are providing and putting together a lot of information, including making sure we're right up front with our community presentations that you understand that. We are always available, myself included, in regards to if you have a resident or a property owner who's a little confused, just send them our way. We'll talk them through that. The other interesting thing is that this changes the composition of the TARTA Board of Trustees. Lucas County is now our 8th member. So we have 13 seats. That did not change. Mary continues as our vice president of the board, and 6 of the communities have 1 seat each. City of Toledo goes from 7 seats to 4, and Lucas County has 3 seats, which they just appointed their 3 members. And we've got a lot of new things to share. That's why I had to bring Neil, because I figure if you listen to me the whole time, you're going to get a little tired. So we'll just jump right into it. 7 days a week. This was something we heard time and again. We need TARTA to run 7 days a week. And in fact, we were the last of the major 6 metro areas in Ohio that did not run 365 days a week. And we noticed just the impact of this when you had things like the Marathon Golf Classic here, and your big days are on weekends, we weren't able to service. So we also are doing holidays. When we look at ever returning service or ever anything we're expanding, we're trying to do it also up to par, best in standard. So we added quite a bit of service in the morning because we heard that on the weekends, and people who are counting on TARTA, they're trying to get to work. So we're seeing a really nice growth in ridership. We start as early as 6:30 a.m. And it was just fantastic. First holiday weekend, a big holiday weekend, Easter, Passover, Ramadan that we were running. We're very aggressively going after funding a historic infrastructure bill that passed in Congress, and we want to bring those dollars back to City of Sylvania, back to Northwest Ohio, and reinvest it in our community. I have to tell you, the 1 week in March that we found out we won not 1, but 2 federal grants, $16 million in my over 20-year transportation career, never saw that happen. Really proud of our team because, as you can see, the first grant, only 35 were awarded across the whole country. For the second grant, equally competitive, there were only 5 transit systems out of the more than 60 in Ohio that were awarded. Again, there were over 300, close to 400 applications across the country. On a rainy day like today, we love this grant award. It's going to replace a 40-year-old roof at Central Avenue. I was walking out to get here to this meeting and walking through the garage and get to hear not just hear, but see the pitter patter of rain right in our garage. And that's even in areas where our maintenance workers are working on our buses. Right now, they have garbage bins just set up to collect the water. So later this year, we'll replace that 40-year-old roof. And we really want to be active and engaged in the community. The Ability Center is such a critical partner of ours, but many others. And our involvement is attracting attention in our industry. We've actually been featured in several industry publications about our work with human trafficking in University of Toledo, Jeep Fest, Hub of Hope. We're getting invitations to come speak at national conferences. And whenever we're doing that, it's really with an eye and an ear and intent that we can uplift and shine the bright light on this entire region. Another thing that's keeping us very busy is technology investments. Coming back to this area, having worked at the Central Ohio Transit Authority and working on a Smart Columbus, Smart USA grant, I mean, I knew quite well, and so does Neil and the rest of our new management team. I mean, our industry is highly technical. I mean, really, our buses are computers on wheels, but we have a lot to do. We have not at TARTA been able to make those continuous advancements in technology. So software upgrades are critical just for efficiency and of our operations. Right down here, Eric, one of our station supervisors for our fixed route and caller ride service, I mean, what he's working on with Trapeze software, he used to do that type of work with a pencil and paper. It was pretty shocking. So these are critical upgrades. You will also see this is one of our new fare boxes. So our fare collection system was over 20 years old. There were no more parts to buy and replace, and frankly, it needed to go because fare collection systems now collect all types of data for us, and we need to know that to be informed and to make decisions. So August 1st, we will start collecting fares. Again, we will have the new fare boxes, plus we will also have validators because we're bringing back and even enhancing our mobile services with Easy Fare. And I should have mentioned that $8 million, 80% is with state and federal grants, 20% with local funds. New vehicles, 36 in 2022. Right now, our fleet is just a little over 100. We've really economized in our fleet and our routes. So that was a drop of almost 50%, to be honest. So what you see here is TARP's vehicles. We are introducing vans, Sportsmasters. And again, all three vehicles can accommodate wheelchairs. What we are able to do with these vans is we can get down dead-end streets. We can get down tighter streets. We can actually pull into a driveway and back up. So we're really excited about that. Our paratransit vehicles, brand new vehicles coming on board, which is so important when you're transporting some of the most vulnerable residents in our community. And then our fixed route vehicles, 12 new Gillig buses, USA built, all of these. What we are doing with our 28 fixed route, the vehicles that will serve the 28 fixed route bus lines, is we are no longer purchasing 40-foot buses. So again, through data collection analysis, projection of our service, we are going to be downsizing to 30-foot buses. So when we're running our bus routes, and you'll see and notice this in Sylvania Township, those routes may start here and they end all the way in downtown Toledo. So we have to think about peak ridership points along the system, and Neil will show you actually how we're doing that with APC, automatic passenger counters, and some other, again, data collection analysis. So this is actually a very efficient way to run our service. Yes, in Sylvania, maybe we pick up 2 or 3 passengers, but along the way, this 30-foot vehicle is, again, it's accommodating much larger passenger counts until they get to the end destination. I mean, it's really, a lot of how transit operates is similar to other systems of transportation. If you look at, our highways, as I was driving here, it's again built for those peak times, and that's what we're doing. All right, I'm going to kind of pivot so that I can give you some framework, foundation for Neil's discussion about TARTA Next. These are the services that we're providing today. And our bread and butter is the fixed route, the 28 lines that we have running in our current 7 communities. Paratransit, TARPs. This is a service that you actually have to meet with us, you have to be assessed, you apply, because it's designed for people who not only can they not drive, they also have developmental and or physical disabilities that prevent them from using our fixed route service or maybe even prevent the call-a-ride. And so we have about 3,300 residents currently that are using this service. And actually, when residents come and seek the service, we generally, most of the time, they do qualify. I think we have a very small 4 or 5% that do not. So I think that's a really good match and fit, those figures. And then Rocket Lift, oftentimes people don't realize we run the transportation campus loop services on University of Toledo campus. And all employees and students are able to use TARTA services for free. And we really hope that we can grow that to get more students into using TARTA and get out into the community. And I know I've had, with Lord's University, some initial conversations with the president there just about how we help her students also use TARTA to get out into the community. And one of those ways could be Call-a-Ride. Call-a-Ride is literally that. You call and you schedule your ride. It is running now 7 days a week. City of Sylvania is probably one of our highest utilization areas, and it's designed in service zones. So it's City of Sylvania, Sylvania Township, Ottawa Hills. A lot of our older adults like this. It's door to door. It can also accommodate wheelchairs, people who need other equipment. Oftentimes, our riders are using it just for shopping, to go to work, to go out to eat. We even have a regular customer who's using it to go visit her husband, who was having some rehabilitation work and had to live away from home for a little while. And then ridership's on the rise, and we're happy about that. Like so many businesses, restaurants, airports. I mean, I'm sure there's a number of other local businesses here as well who really have felt the ups and downs of COVID, and we certainly did. Our paratransit TARPs back to normal, which that means that we are now doing pre-COVID level of ridership, which is over 200,000 rides a year. And that's significant. Interestingly, that's what we were doing down in Columbus when I worked at CODA. We're seeing our fixed route and Call-a-Ride, again, really growing. Omicron in January kind of took us down, but happy to report that we had a 24% increase in ridership from February to March. So people want to get out, they want to get about, and this is where they're going. All the places all of us need to go who have a car or 2 cars or 3. Work is always number one. And in fact, this data is from November and it was part of our TARTA Next survey. We just did another customer satisfaction survey and we'll get those figures. And I would imagine it may increase. Again, we're just seeing so much interesting kind of uptick and fluctuation with COVID. But shopping, medical, dental, school, these are essential trips. So with all that, we're going to switch gears to the future. Last year, really before last year, as we were prepping for going on the ballot. We had a lot of questions. What's the plan? What will you do? And what we needed to do was create and undergo with a comprehensive operational analysis. Big jargon transit word. Really, it's to take a full look at the services we offer, take a look at the future. A big part of this, as Neil will say, is redesigning the bus service so that it is meeting the needs and will actually grow ridership. He's going to talk about expanding service, but making it easier. The easier it is, the more intuitive, again, that will draw riders, increase those numbers. And then he's going to talk about some more mobility opportunities, how we take something like Call a Ride and really introduce it into something that is very much more modern and applicable to what's happening in other communities like Las Vegas, Columbus, even Grand Rapids. So I'll turn it over to Neil.
All right. Thank you, Laura, and Mayor, President, Council, Mary, of course. Great to be here tonight. And again, as Laura says, TARTA Next is kind of the how part of how we move ahead. So Laura kind of highlighted a lot of things that we've been doing for a long time, operating fixed route service, operating call a ride service. And one of the first slides was a system map showing all of our fixed routes. And a criticism we heard a lot, and we could only agree with, which kind of sparked the whole TARTA Next project here, was a lot of our service hasn't changed in 50, 60, 70 years. We have a lot of routes on the map that have been following the same path since the streetcar days. And with the level of community support that we're seeing and the level of interest, we thought it was a perfect time to kind of look ahead and ask, how do we modernize? How do we do this better? How do we not just catch up to where we need to be, where we should have been going, but to kind of set the stage to keep growing into the future? So that's where TARTA Next comes in. And Laura's mentioned technology. That's a key part of what we do. You see this funny looking device here, looks like a distant cousin of ET. That is what we call an APC, automatic passenger counter. So as part of the TARTA Next initiative, we have outfitted 12 buses with this equipment, and it's hooked up to a GPS system on the bus. So as the bus is going up and down the route, people get on and off. We can capture a record of how many people are getting on and off at each stop, and we can get data like this, which is super useful when we're trying to see where the service is most effective and where there's opportunity to maybe streamline a little bit. So what we're looking at here is one of our routes from downtown, in this case out to kind of Washington Township area, just as an example. But we have this data for all the routes, and the little wedges you see here, you see the small ones where there's not a lot of volume, the big ones where there's bigger volume, split between customers boarding and customers deboarding. So now, after many years of kind of just running the same routes year in, year out, we have all this data, and we could see, oh, this is where the system is working and where we could use some additional service. Here's areas where things aren't quite as valuable. So how do we modernize? How do we streamline? A big part of TARTA Next is looking at how we stack up against some of our peers. So the consultant team we've been working with, they've gone through NTD data, National Transit Database data, to really kind of help us see how do we do, how do we stack up, and you could see what we're spending and what we get. Fortunately, this number is going up with issue 12, and we're very grateful for that, and we're very excited to dig in. But it's a good comparison to kind of see how transit investments in Northwest Ohio stack up to some other parts of the country. All right, so what's the vision? So there's some services up here that we've been involved with for some time. Some things that have been on the road for a while that you're probably familiar with, such as the fixed route service. I want to add, it's only been in the last year or so that we've been running fixed route service to Sylvania again. There was a while where there was an absence of fixed route service. Even coming up Monroe Street, it only went as far as the ProMedica clinic, just short of Sylvania city limits. And about a year ago, we started running service to Flower Hospital again on 2 routes. So fixed route has arrived to Sylvania again. We're very excited about that. The ridership has materialized. Microtransit, you know what? I'm going to go here first. Paratransit is kind of the generic name for what we know as TARPs. So that's something that is and will continue to be a highly valuable part of the system. Microtransit. Laura mentioned our Call-A-Ride service, and Sylvania has been on board with Call-A-Ride since we started running it. It is a door-to-door service, and as part of TARTA Next, we're asking, how can we modernize it? So it might not necessarily be called Call-A-Ride, it might be App and Ride, or it might be hop online and ride. And there still will more than likely be an option to call. So how do we kind of blend all these services and some new things to the lineup as well? Now that our service area is growing, even these familiar services might not be the answer for some more further flung parts of Lucas County. So how do we assess needs? How do we work with community members, elected officials in those communities to understand what they have in mind? And connection points, we'll get to this a couple slides from now. How do we weave it all together? So these services aren't existing in silos. They're not freestanding things. They all do work together. You could use one, you could use multiple services, and really, really tap in to everything we have here in Northwest Ohio. So if that's the what, here's the where. And I love maps, and I promise I'm not going to get too deep into the details here. I have a feeling I'm not the only one in here who loves maps. I got it. All right. So what this kind of helps us see is in our new expanded service. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. See, even the presentation didn't want me to get too far into the map. In our new expanded service area, based on some demographic factors, what service types make the most sense? A lot of this is pretty obvious, pretty intuitive. When we're out here in the more rural reaches of Lucas County, we're not even thinking about fixed route service. It doesn't make sense for obvious reasons. I'm going to skip a ring for a second and go to the urban core. Toledo, somewhat Sylvania, Maumee. How do we modernize and update a lot of the services we've been running for the 50 years we've been around? 51? Coming up soon. All right. And this middle ring right here, where things kind of overlap, and to some extent, Sylvania is right on the border here. How do we kind of line up the full range of services to meet the needs in communities that are kind of somewhere in between? So this really kind of helps us chart that path. When I say us, that's not just us at TARTA, it's all community members who are a part of this. We like to say we have consultants working on this, but the greatest consultants we have are our stakeholders, our drivers, our customers, our neighbors, our members. So we definitely look forward to engaging you further as we get this out here, and we've been doing it already for the past 6 months or so. We've done a number of community meetings to get some feedback on this and some input, and we've had some really, really good ideas. Microtransit is something we're pretty excited about. It is a service that's new to transit systems everywhere. It's similar to Call-A-Ride, so in a sense, we were kind of early to the party on this. And Microtransit does use a smaller vehicle to serve not a route, but kind of a designated zone. And there's a lot of really successful examples of it. So in Columbus, for instance, CODA's been very successful with Microtransit as a complement to their fixed route service. There's a kind of interesting example, not too far from here in Battle Creek, Calhoun County, Michigan, where it's more of a rural-oriented microtransit service. So maybe cover some longer distances, probably some different trip purposes, but still very much part of the public transit lineup. And then in Grand Rapids, where there's a lot of innovation with transit, they too are working on a new microtransit project. So we like to get out there, see what our colleagues in the transit biz are doing. We frequently look to these three as some good examples from which we can learn and deploy and kind of evolve what we now know as Call-A-Ride. And down the road, we may know as something else. But whatever we call it, we're certain it's going to be an improvement. So we're excited about that. Last thing I'll hit on here is connection points. So as we have a richer lineup of services that do more things, serve more people, go more places, and do it in different ways, what's it look like? What's it feel like to connect between these services? We understand no one's going to be excited about it if we let you off in a parking lot and you got to kind of fend for yourself. So we're in the process of trying to identify some existing locations in the community that already are transit destinations that might make sense to serve as a connection point. And by all means, if you have any ideas for what in Sylvania might make a good connection point, please, let's talk. I want to point out, even though this image is kind of floating in space, the best types of connection points are at active destinations, at a hospital, at a university, at a shopping center, at a place where people are going. Transit itself is not a destination, but if we could concentrate and focus more transit services on an actual destination, as well as using it as a connection point, then we're cooking. So this is a key component to kind of bring all these things together, and we're really excited to engage with city leadership, with community stakeholders, to find ways to kind of bring this all to life. So that's what we got going with TARTA Next. We got bits and pieces of it kind of coming to life as we speak. Again, as Laura said, Sunday service is on the road. We're 3 or 4 Sundays in. We're already nearing 2,000 fixed route rides every Sunday. And considering that was 0 a month ago, we're encouraged. That number is only going to go up. So there's a lot going on. It's great to engage. It's great to collaborate, and we're really eager to kind of keep moving ahead here. So thanks again for having us.
I think at this point, if you have any questions, Neil and I are more than happy to answer them. If we still have our TARTA Next survey that is available, you can go to our website or tartanext.com. We're trying to reach 500 surveys. I think we're more than halfway there. And it will actually talk you through exactly, or lead you through what Neil presented, and you'll be able to share your feedback, as well as we can collect some direct comments also. I think just the last thing that we'd like to say is some communities, we actually kind of have a sit-down meeting discussion, and if that's something that you desire, it could be with the City of Sylvania staff. Maybe there's a specific issue or opportunity. We are more than interested and available. We've had one of those with Springfield Township, probably since it's a new area that we're going into, but from there, it was very helpful. We were obviously focused on extending to Spring Meadows. They alerted to us how McCord Road, where else, Dorr Street, I mean, all these areas that they're thinking about are areas of growth and need. So that was just so invaluable to have that conversation. I know a lot to let you think about and sink in, but we'll be taking feedback, comments, surveys, at least through, I think we have presentations almost all the way through the end of May. And then the FUM will be taking all of that, coming back to the board, and presenting some concepts. I mean, and I think also what we're realizing is, issue 12 was really just an enormous game changer. So we're kind of more talking about a multi-year implementation, something like when Metro Parks or the library or a school system, because just like all of those public taxpayer-funded entities, we're building something brand new here too, and to do it well and thoughtful, it's going to take a thoughtful plan laid out.
Laura?
Yeah.
First, I'd like to say thank you for the presentation. It was interesting information. And since I was challenged to have a question, I'm going to ask a question.
Okay. Great.
So you mentioned that the 2021 property tax collections, they're always lagging. And I understand that, and I'm sure other members of council and administration do as well. You also mentioned that sales tax collection started the 1st of April, but if we get a call or a comment from a citizen, when they say that the tax collection start the 1st of April, when does TARTA actually see the money?
That's a great question. Yes, we do not see it. We're anticipating end of July or beginning of August for our first payment. And So that means this year is, our budget is not what we anticipate in future years. We conservatively estimate with sales tax, we'll have an operating, let me back up. We conservatively estimate that our local funding through sales tax will be $32 million a year. Now, we have asked for, Lucas County has provided us information, and it's wild times with COVID. So we've seen where, okay, they've had some good quarters and some bad quarters. So we will always be conservative in our estimates. But this year, our local investment coming in is anticipated to only be $26 million. So that's another reason why, you know, we can do a lot of good planning, but implementation will take time. And that is also why we were really aggressive, hopeful, happy when we received some more ARA money from the 13.8 million, which will help us carry through this year and maybe even to next year.
Right, so the money that you're talking about, so that starts and you're gonna get that monthly, right? So there's not like there's not a lump sum that comes in July or late July, early August. That just, okay, that's the first check that comes in that was for April tax collections, and then every month thereafter you get another check, right? Or is it quarterly?
It's quarterly.
Okay. So that's why I wanted to ask you the question. I wasn't sure about that. But if
Yeah.
I get a call or a question from a citizen and they say, well, why are they collecting here when they're supposed to be collecting sales tax? The lag time of actually receiving the money
Right.
is what I wanted to just verify.
Yes.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Sure.
Any other questions for Laura or Neil or Mary? I'm sure that you're willing to receive questions directly from members of City Council.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
And of course, we can always go through Mary if we want to go that way. So terrific. Thank you for
Right.
being in here.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thanks
Mary,
so much for the
Thanks for your
time.
service for our community too.
Right.
All right. Have a good evening. And we're going to move on with our agenda. We're up to agenda item 6. We have 3 street improvement projects that we need to talk about. The first one is the Monroe Street Silica Drive intersection improvements and the Silica Drive bridge replacement. Mr. Aller?
Project. Section.
Thanks, Kevin. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to come and discuss the project here with you all. Some new faces and some old ones, so I'll just take a couple of minutes to briefly go about how we got here so that everybody's aware of where this came from. But we started this 5 years ago in 2017, where we did a traffic study of Monroe and Silica. The result of that came out that there were improvements that need to be made to improve level of service for AM dismissal, our AM arrival, PM dismissal, as well as PM peak that runs through that intersection. So that came up with, we could either do a roundabout or a traffic signal improvement. Did some public involvement in 2019 at Northview High School, solicited a lot of comments, and the result of that was a traffic signal was the way that most people wanted to see go. So that's what we ended up with in 2019, and then as weird things align sometimes in the engineering world, the bridge, general appraisal rating for it, and that's usually the general idea of how good a bridge is, dropped from a 5 to a 4, which isn't really significant in terms of numbers, but from a funding perspective means we can go after funding, and that's what we did. So in 2020, we went after municipal bridge funds. We were successful with that. So here we've got 2 projects with federal funds in them right next to each other, and so we stepped off design about a year ago on this. So with that, here we are today. We've been through the design process. Obviously, you guys know me. But here we go through the design process, and we're to the point where the design is about 95% complete. So it's a good point in the project to stop and show you guys where we're at with it, and then also talk about next steps and what to expect. And everybody also wants to know what you do in construction, how do you maintain traffic. So we'll go through some of that a little bit too. But here's the project location. We're starting just at the westerly limits of Maplewood Elementary, and then we go all the way over to Main Street. And then, of course, we're replacing our bridge to the south. And then about halfway up Judy Young is about how far we go. So that's just a kind of a colored picture of what it looks like. There's some lanes on there. It's zoomed out a little bit. I don't anticipate you to understand that and read it, but we'll zoom around to a couple different spots and point out some highlights of the project. So why are we doing this, right? It's a capacity improvement project. It doesn't perform well in terms of level of service. It's the worst it gets. It's an F for an intersection. So by doing what we're going to do, and we'll go around and show a couple different things, we're going to reduce traffic congestion, improve our level of service, and then improve our corridor with efficiency by adding an additional eastbound lane, and we'll show you that in a little bit. And then obviously our bridge from 1938 was a Works Progress Administration project. If you're familiar with your history buffs, 1938. So we've almost gotten 100 years out of our bridge that's there. So this is what Monroe Street will look like. It's almost as if you're sitting in the middle of the road and looking from the library to the railroad tracks. So we're going to have 2 lanes in the eastbound direction, and we'll have 1 coming at you. And then the middle will be left and right turn lanes. So as you look at this, you may wonder, well, why are we only putting 1 lane in one direction and not the other? It's very difficult for us to squeeze in another lane. If you're familiar, as you come west from Haroon, you have 2 lanes, and then you get to Main Street and you drop to 1. Carrying an additional lane through that is really difficult. A lot of high dollar, expensive acquisition for right-of-way to do that. As you go in the eastbound direction, it's actually not that bad to do, and that's what we're able to do with this project, is add that eastbound lane. So zoomed in a little bit, this is where we'll start. As you come this direction, you'll have 2 through lanes of traffic. Go back. And the other way. The other way. Thank you, guys. Just start me back up, Chuck. Thanks. Perfect. Okay. So we'll have 2 eastbound lanes. The right lane will be a through and a right turn drop lane. The pattern as you come from the other direction to the west is really the same, 1 through lane and 1 left turn lane. This approach as you come from the north is going to get significantly wider. There's going to add an additional lane there. And then the approach coming this way is pretty much the same as it was there. But we carry this through lane all the way through the intersection as we head down to the railroad tracks, where we cross up and over and then tie into what we already have, our existing 2 lanes. So to do that, we've got to widen the railroad crossing, which is a challenge to work with them, but so far that's gone pretty well. And then we'll talk about drives here in just a minute. So The purple shaded area is going to be a new drive approach that comes in off of Judy Young, and this white cross-hatched area off from Monroe Street is our existing drive that's going to go away. So when we did the work with the library a couple of years ago, they actually had 3 approaches from Monroe Street. We were able to get that reduced down to 1. And similarly with us, we have 2 approaches. We can get that reduced down to 1 to better consolidate access through there. So you can pull in through the courthouse and access anything you need to, or ingress, egress out this new drive off of Judy Young. There's our new bridge, and again, yeah.
What that does is that lines across. Essentially. Art.
Yeah, good point. So let's look at our bridge a little bit. This is kind of a section view looking as if you were at Northview looking up the hill to the intersection. So similar lanes of traffic over the bridge. You're going to have 1 in each direction. And then it's going to get significantly wider to the west side or the school side. And over here, we're going to have a 10-foot multi-use path that bikes and peds can use. And then in the center of it, we'll take a look at, there's an overlook area that'll overlook 10 Mile Creek. It'll have it'll have 2 benches on it, and then a center pylon that dedicates it as Don Townsend Memorial Gateway Bridge. Yeah, the bridge is going to look really good. It's going to have the center pylon that Kevin talked about with the plaque in the middle. It's going to have some stamped concrete that can get stained, decorative black railing that kind of goes over the outlook area and down, and then our multi-use path here. So let's talk about traffic. That's what everybody usually wants to know. How's it going to impact my daily drive? So it's a big project. You usually don't see ones like this in Sylvania that often. So phases are what we call in maintenance of traffic. So we really have 2 phases that we're working with here. So phase 1 is we're going to build the bridge in the south side of Monroe Street first, which means we can maintain traffic 1 lane in the westbound direction. So once the project starts in 2023 in mid-March, from March 15th to July 15th, is basically when you're going to be able to go westbound on Monroe only. And they'll have a detour posted to go for eastbound traffic to go around. And we'll show you that here in a minute. So while we do that, Judy Young is closed. While we can redo the bridge, we keep access open to the church. That's the only thing at the bottom of the hill that we have. So we do an early phase of construction to allow access to in and out of that church so they can continue to use their parking lot. And that's basically the idea. Green is in this direction that you can go. You won't be able to go the other way. This section can close once Maplewood is done, and we can do a quick piece of construction there for about 45 days where we shut that off and we do everything on Judy Young that we need to do. And then this is our bigger piece where we maintain just a little bit of access to get to the church, and then that's it. The Northview parking lot is pretty much closed for most of that time, and we're working with the schools on their parking situation on where those kids can go. So phase 2, when we get to about July, we will flip. Yeah, go ahead.
Question on phase 1. What did you say about the detour on phase 1 for eastbound?
Sure, and I'll show you that. I got a better slide that shows it. That one's a little, we'll walk through it and then we'll show it to you. So phase 2, then we can flip traffic over, and then we allow traffic to go eastbound. Westbound is closed off, and then we'll show you the detour for what that looks like. Basically build the north side of the road in this phase. So basically allow traffic in that direction, and then we will detour from the westbound, as we'll show here. So a lot going on this map, so this answers your question, Mary. So we've got our project up here at Monroe and Silica, and then for when it's going this direction, when this direction is closed, we will have our detour route back here at Mitchell. And I'll go over why that is, because it seems kind of far away, but that's where it is. So we'll use Mitchell down to Sylvania Avenue in pink, over to Holland, Sylvania, up to Haroon. And you may be asking yourself, God, that's really far around. Why are we doing that? So there's a couple of other projects that are noted on here. So us and the county are very, very, very busy next year. Between all these projects that are on here, there's about $7 or $8 million worth of work that's going on. So as we do that, while this project is going on here, the county is also going to have a roundabout being built at Britton Centennial. Okay, so their time frame is March 15th through May 31st, which is the exact same time that we are. So if we brought our detour traffic over to Centennial and down through the roundabout, it's going to be closed, right? So we've got to push it back in this first phase and then take them down this way. We can't use Brent either because the roundabout's going to be there. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Question. Although they'll figure it out quick.
Yeah. Yeah, usually traffic does scatter, but you do have to have a posted detour. So this is pretty far for the first phase, but the red projects are actually going to be going on simultaneously for a phase. So they will finish up May 31st. And then once that's done, we have a joint resurfacing project with the county on Brent Road. And that's the black lines here. That'll start June 15th and run through August 1st. So the county's resurfacing their piece from Centennial to basically the municipal limits. And then we are doing from our municipal limits on Silica through to the railroad tracks. So that'll keep that area kind of cleaned up, and we keep our detour traffic away from Brent Road while that's going on. And then when those are wrapped up in August 1st, we will flip to phase 2 of our project, and then the detour becomes Haroon down to Holland, Sylvania to Sylvania, and then now probably with the roundabout complete, we can take them back up Centennial and go. Would be quicker. We would get a lot of complaints with residents about detouring all that traffic there. Yeah. Yeah, we have to post something that official detour. Obviously, you guys know how that works. Sometimes it doesn't work that way.
People go to Michigan.
Yeah. Right. Finally, the last project I didn't discuss is in blue. County has one more resurfacing project that they're doing. It's not a part of us. They're resurfacing Mitchell from Brent to Sylvania Met. And so again, our detour route needs to shift over to Centennial while that work is being done. So a lot of work going on here, a lot of things being planned. So 2023 will be busy. Any more questions on that? Okay. So we got 5.3 million in this job. Our town usually doesn't see projects that are this big, but like I said, we were very fortunate to have funding mechanisms align and do all this work in one big shot. So project will start in March. We should take us a full construction season to work our way through this. Would not be surprised with material or shipping delays if we have to extend into spring of 24 on just some mop-up items, but we should be able to get most items done in a construction season. So that's what we're doing. So I'll be doing the same presentation to Sylvania School Board. There's a lot that goes on there that impacts them, so I'll be there on Monday night explaining that project, all this stuff to them. And then officially we'll probably do a recorded version of this, and we'll post it on our website. We'll put it out in our utility bills and different places, social media, where people can click and watch a 15-minute video of it recorded. So, okay. That's all I had. Any other questions?
Yeah. First, thanks for the presentation and the information. Obviously, lots of work, lots of grants that were received by the city in the work that you all have done on that. That's great. First, I'd like to request that you do, maybe not the entire piece, but much of this for a DSA meeting as well. Maybe not in the next month or two, but because they're going to be impacted indirectly, because even though it only comes in and skirts the downtown footprint, it still will impact them. If you would, please, that would be great.
Absolutely, for sure.
And second, since this is near and dear to my heart, at 7:20 a.m. coming down Monroe Street, I'm sure others. So when you add the third lane, so you got 2 eastbound lanes, and then you've got a right-hand turning lane that are going to basically crank down onto Silica, correct? When it's completed, for buses and cars and stuff to get to Northview, right? How much is that going to help?
It will. It'll significantly help. The traffic study and what your observation shows, it can back up through Erie frequently. Our model will suggest that it's half of that, so you could get a backup maybe where the lanes start to diverge, which is why the turning lengths are really as long as they are. And there's some cool things that we can do from a traffic signal perspective, where we can do right turn overlaps while some traffic is moving on Silica, but we can still funnel traffic in on right turn overlaps. It doesn't currently have that ability to do that. So with our advancements that we can do in traffic signal technology, plus the added capacity and width, we can really help improve the AM arrival.
So the technological signals is going to help just because of that, if nothing else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you.
Order those ahead of our project. By the time we get the contract order, whole, have them setting. Imagine, ODOT. Sounds really simple. I think we'll get.
We trust your powers of persuasion.
Thank you, Joe. All right. The next project we want to talk about is the downtown streetscape project that can be transformational for our downtown and add a second block of improved downtown streetscape. I know Lindsay wants to push back from the table on this discussion.
Yes, once again, as a property owner, as someone in downtown area, just to make sure I'm avoiding any potential conflict of.
Okay. We need a motion to allow Lindsay to do that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show that Lindsay is pushed back from the table and not participating in the discussions. The project that Joe was talking to us about will happen in 2023. Streetscape project could happen in 2024, depending on how fast the design public input process can take, or 2025. Problem with 2025 is, as you may remember, we will have the intersection with Monroe Street, Alexis, and US 23 under construction at that time, and that much more so than what we just talked about will be Carmageddon in this community. So it would be good. We need to talk about the downtown streetscape. It does not have to happen in 2024, but the funds that the administration is recommending using the ARP funds, the $2 million, must be at least under contract by the end of 2024, must be spent by 2026. And I want you to know that I did meet last Thursday with the executive director of the Downtown Sylvania Association, former council member Katie Capolini, and discussed this schedule with her and challenged her to come up with the committees and the meeting schedule that the DSA, and not just DSA members, but all downtown business owners would like to participate with for the envisioning part of this project. It's, again, transformational. We need lots of input on it, just like we had on the downtown master plan process. And I'm not sure that can all be accomplished in time to design it, bid it, and construct it in just 2 years from now. We will have to see how that comes along. But we had a good meeting. I understand that she has walked with each one of you through the downtown area. That's very good. But there's a lot of work to be done, and DSA should be participating in this public input phase. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk about the contract that's on the agenda tonight, that we are not pressuring you to pass tonight. It needs to be passed in the next month or so we can get this planning process going. Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we've been talking, one of the projects that's been talked about for several years. Flux project. Us of a ongoing capital. And so we had reached out to consulting engineers out of Maumee. Obviously have done that they had been involved in some similar and I listed some of those in that letter. Been involved with Maumee, Delta, Oregon, and Port. Well, have done some with in the city. They've done very good work. You've been in cities. They are roadway and bikeways and electrical contractor aspects of it. And what they put together have there, they'll survey work, willing have stakeholder meetings. This letter, item number 4, kind of lends itself, one could read that they will have a stakeholder. We'll have more we will have as many meetings. That means this is a project. The existing streetscape was done in. This is a project to identify the city. Have it right. Both the downtown see that they have identified that they'll utilize as the electrical consultant on the project, as well as Edge. For the, they've done a lot of work with Edge. That's typical. So have a good. This will be a 1,000-foot look at what that downtown street look like. that city, PSA, all, I feel excited about, ready for downtown. There are parts of the downtown that are tired.
The existing streetscape downtown was done in the early 1980s before I was on city council. Judy Young was on council then and was the council chair for this part of the work. And you can see old pictures of the downtown before that. The west side of the road was heavily covered with telephone wires, like 60 wires on poles going through there. And it was also designated as US Route 223. We used to have semi-trucks rumbling up and down Main Street, and that was part of the process to get those out of there. But it was also the new sidewalks, the concrete paver sidewalks, the tree grates and the trees that went in there. Those trees are aging out. We've cut some down in the last few years. There's probably going to be more cut down this year as dead trees. It's time to refresh this. And the other big issue is ADA accessibility. Main Street is not ADA accessible according to current standards. Some stores still have steps to get up to their floor level, and there are issues with getting from the street level up on curb ramps to get up on the sidewalks. And the sidewalks themselves slope too much from the buildings to the curb. That cross slope does not meet federal guidelines either. All that's going to have to be taken into account. And 100-year-old or more utilities under the street will be replaced as well.
Water and sewer lines as they're upwards of, obviously, if we're kind of downtown, that will be part of all up. Just finish. Probably, listen, largest things. What currently are the sections? We have the section project, large emphasis. Talking some of the architecture, talking about project, help that. I do think it's it's time to move on. I don't know.
Any thought about any part of Maplewood?
The piece between Monroe.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, that's a possibility. At downtown street, obviously, section. Hopeful. Assumption.
Right.
Part of
Mr. Hayden, we envision the construction funds, maybe $3 million will be needed to do the 2 blocks of Main Street. But the study area should go beyond that. It should take into account Maplewood, but I think it should take also Monroe Street from the railroad tracks over to Summit Street. Even though we might not be able to fund those, we should be master planning those and doing it for the future. And the next agenda item is going to talk about crossing Monroe Street. So that's all important. don't restrict your thinking just to those 2 blocks of Main Street. The downtown makes an impression as an overall area, and we need to think of all that, not just those 2 blocks. There's a lot of work to be done in envisioning that, especially the second block north of Maplewood, because I don't have a set idea there. Is that gonna have parking along the street? Are we gonna get rid of the green ribbons between the curb and the sidewalks? What's gonna happen up there? I don't know. We need the professional designers to come in and give us some options. And then decide, let the property owners decide, the business owners decide. But I just can't let this process take too long and put this federal money at risk. It has to be under obligation, under contract by the end of 2024, and there's reason to have it under construction before 2025.
Mr. Aller, one of the things that I'm assuming that's going to be looked at in this process is going to be burying the electrical and other lines on the west side of the second block with the poles. We basically put underground utilities in.
They're overhead, north
the
of
west side.
Maplewood on the west side. They are
On
on
the
the
west
west
side.
side. There's poles on the west side. And those, I think, that's my intention to get them buried. We don't have the same flexibility that we had when this block was done. They just brought it all back to Becker Place and ran them back there.
Right.
Right.
To bury them is a challenge. That means that every electric service, every telephone service in that block will have to be switched to underground service. But that's part of the study. We're gonna see what it's gonna cost, and I think we should try to do it. I mean, but that's why we're doing the study.
That won't be, I mean, there will be costs to that. I don't think those are the larger,
No, they're not.
They're not.
that will be more palatable, what we're faced with.
Correct. And we don't have the massive telephone lines up there that were on the first block of Main Street. Because the switching station is right next door here. All those lines were coming into this building, the old GTE building. They don't extend north towards Michigan. It's
Right.
pretty limited lines going up.
I just wanted to make sure. I assumed that was already going to be embedded, but that, to me, that would make things a lot cleaner.
Yeah, and
But
with
it's not
the-
going to be cheap.
with the, well, and the one thing is with the transportation, utility required,
Yes.
so there will be station.
Question. Mr. Richardson, this comes under the direction of your committee. I know you've had discussions with Mr. Aller and me in the past.
Yes.
What would you like to see happen tonight?
So I've had conversations with all the members of the Streets Committee, and there is a desire to have a committee meeting to discuss this. I think that at least I have a desire to do that quickly, like next week if we can, or sometime very soon, definitely before the next council meeting. Is this an appropriate time in the agenda to try to set that now?
Absolutely.
All right, so, is Brian, Mary, Doug, and myself on streets? For you guys, I'd be looking at, I have some openings next Thursday or Friday morning, the 28th, 29th, if that work for anybody? Oh,
Time are you talking?
yeah, what's first thing?
7:30, but 8 would be,
I would, yeah. I could do either. 8 would be good.
28th or 29th?
Yeah. Think either of those work?
Yeah.
And then Kevin, could you be here at that time? And I'd like you to be in on this.
No, I'm not on the committee, but I prefer the 28th.
Okay. Yeah, if there's other council, obviously all council or administration, anybody that wants to come or thinks they'd have input, 28th at 8 a.m. in council chambers. How does that work for everybody? I need a motion to set that Then I will make a motion to set a meeting for the City of Sylvania Streets Committee to discuss proposed ordinance number 46, 2022 on Thursday, April 28th at 8 a.m. in council chambers.
Second.
Moved and seconded to set that Streets Committee meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the clerk is directed to post that committee meeting.
We're gonna meet here.
Council chambers, yeah.
All right, then. This, you have ordinance 46, 2022. This is going to be held until the next committee meeting, and hopefully you'll have a recommendation on it that night.
Thank you.
Any further questions or observations on this agenda item?
You know what, I'd like to hear a little bit about how these three on the, I assume they each have their own piece of the pie in this budget. I don't know whether that means you want to have all available on, or whoever's coordinating that.
You could invite somebody, Kevin, whoever you think would be appropriate, maybe DGL to attend the meeting if they'd want to. We could obviously Zoom in if they need or whatever, but obviously they're welcome to attend.
And we're just gonna contract with DGL, right? And they're gonna hire
Subs.
RM and thing to hear. What the,
ESA specifically requested Edge's participation because of the good experience they've had with them working on the Heritage Museum site. And as you can see from the letter, Edge was included in it last October. But I think Edge is going to play a very important role in visualizing the appearance of the downtown. And that's the part of the contract we may choose to expand depending on how the process.
Great.
Okay. Great. Let's move on to agenda item 8 then. And let the record show that Ms. Dow is back at the table. This one also affects the downtown and the Monroe Street corridor. There's, with the SOMO occupied, I understand now it's 95% occupied or so. I talked to them last week and I didn't ask the question, but I've heard it's 95%. There's reason to get people across the street more, and in walking from my business office to the downtown, there is no crossing light all the way from Haroon to Main Street. So I requested the service director to come up with a proposal to install a cross light at Summit Street. He, of course, expanded that project into a whole re-signalization of Monroe Street, Main Street, and Summit Street. I almost fell off my chair when he came back to me with, is this the project cost to implement the work? He said, no, that's for the engineering. Why don't you explain from there, Kevin?
Yes, once you start taking a look at the signal that is currently at Summit and Monroe, actually circa 19, which but same.
Mechanical timer.
So it, you know, it's that signal is part of the proposal that we have. Option. SOMO. Oops. I'll know. But if we're going to do something at this intersection, It will include changing that signal out, having a little bit better coordination. Also, right now, we department full at SOMO. Full. Now, if they wanted to cross at Summit Street, for most places that they want to get that large of, but go element, Summit Street or of a, so it's a, this project was not something that we had scheduled. Actually had it on our 5-year. But with the mayor's request, our change, we think that was like to move forward. It was not something that was included in capital, but because of not successful, are on hold with. I'll be bringing some of that information forward to you as we go along. Revised 22 capital because of what's happened, not only in the non-successes, but also what's happening. But I believe that the $38,000, the funds are available in the, as always, cognizant. I would recommend forward with the project. Find out what that is.
And we have no engineer's estimate yet, but just your seat of the pants guess, what is the resignalization contract gonna cost? Couple $100,000 more?
Based on the cost I was.
Okay.
Will we have any grant opportunities? Any of that?
Yeah, they're gonna be. That one, we maybe, OPW.
Yeah.
I don't think, or other funding, that would put us, one, we'd be looking at 2027.
Right.
You know, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. We cannot go on with all those people living at Soma.
Yeah,
And a lot of them are crossing the street to get to the Rite Aid, to tell you the truth. I think we are prudent to at least do the engineering and see what it's gonna cost and project ahead. I tell you what, I can't walk downtown, walk along Monroe Street from my office. Sometimes I cross at River Crossings to get to the bank. Sometimes I stay on the south side and cross at Summit to get to the Rite Aid. Every time I do that, somebody sees me and says, "Oh, I saw you crossing. Is that jaywalking, Mayor?" And I guess it is, because there's no crosswalks. But I think I'm not the only one, and I'm sure that the developer of the old furniture company there is looking for a crosswalk as well.
So Mr. Aller, if this is approved and we get the estimate back on the signalization costs, what would be the time frame? Are we anticipating that this could be done in 23, or are we looking at 24 for this as well?
There's a schedule on,
Schedule in here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
next to last page, page 4 of the proposal.
Yeah,
Final
but
plans,
that's
it
just
doesn't
for
give us
this
a deadline.
contract.
Those are, yeah, that's for
I
the,
was talking about the actual
Oh,
work.
I'm sorry.
I was talking about the next step.
I would, because of other projects. Don't.
Mm-hmm.
Project Joe just described up 24, hopefully. So I have to see how schedule works at our traffic routes that project. Have to bound only, westbound only. So at this stage, I'm gonna south. That may south be. Large. Some of it will come into, are we successful? Out of.
I appreciate that. The reason I was asking is I know we've got a lot of balls in the air and a lot of projects, and you didn't even mention the roundabout potential up on Erie and Monroe Street. That's not even on this.
26.
I understand, but that's still, I mean, we're going to get yelled at on that one, at least in my neighborhood, for sure. So I just want to, I recognize that and want to be sensitive to that. So,
That's a heavy city council residency back in that subdivision.
I understand, Mayor. But no, I appreciate that, Mr. Aller. Thank you for the information.
Mr. Eller, thinking about this, we're a year and a half behind in planning because of SOMO. That this would have been a good idea to have already works. But so speaking of future and streetscape, et cetera, that are we going to have to redo things, or is this going to be a coordinated effort to those effects?
We're using the same engineer to
Okay.
avoid just that problem.
Good. And then the second part of it is, this is needed today. Is there any mitigation we can do today to help this, to do something there to deal with the crossing?
Not anything that we can put in bed crossing, signal. All of that is. While northbound, south, isn't a. We obviously want to accommodate those. So, really nothing, can't just order ped crossing, but it may, large, but it's gonna be something, this project,
And Brian, as somebody that pulls out in my car at river crossings to Monroe Street and apparently jaywalks in that area, the existing lights do give breaks in the traffic. There's
Yes.
times when I can stroll across Monroe Street without worrying about cars in either direction because the traffic lights are stopping traffic. But you have to be patient to do it. We have a contract here with DGL, it's ordinance 47, 2022. I recommend accepting this proposal. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce ordinance number 47, 2022, and read by title only, accepting the proposal of DGL Consulting Engineers LLC to provide engineering services for the Monroe Street, Main Street, Summit Street Traffic Signal Improvement Project, appropriating funds therefore in the amount of $38,259. I would move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for passage of ordinance 47, 2022 as an emergency measure. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and ordinance 47, 2022 is enacted as an emergency measure. Thank you, Kevin. Joe, thank you for being here tonight as well. We're putting a lot on these gentlemen's plates. They've done great work for us. To go to TMCOG, Joe's the chairman of the Transportation Council down there. We worked hard with ODOT, but you've brought some of this on yourselves as well. All right. That gets us to agenda item 9, committee reports. Mr. Fry, would you like to make a report of the committee of the whole meeting held this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a committee of the whole to discuss the possible TIF in the downtown area and existing CRA information for members of council. All members of council were in attendance, as well as Mr. Sanford, Mrs. Bucher, Ms. Brining, Mr. Silvernail, Mayor Stow, Mr. Schroyer, Mr. Aller. And one member from the audience, Tiffany Scott from the Chamber of Commerce, was also in attendance. After the meeting was open, Mrs. Brining basically reviewed the CRA information. She discussed the differences in CRA utilization, the types of CRAs that we have in the city, both pre-94 and post-94, and some of the differences there. And we discussed the impact of TIFs and a CRA and how a CRA could potentially impact a TIF, as well as the possible impact of a job creation grant. We didn't make any decisions, but Mr. Sanford did indicate during the meeting, and he and Mrs. Brining would be meeting with Reveille to get a better or updated projections of the potential TIF revenues on two alternatives: the rolling 10-year TIF, which is what we've got preliminary data on, as well as the possibility of a 30-year TIF and what that might mean. And once we had that data over the next few weeks, we would then arrange for another meeting to discuss this further with that information, and a report would be sent out. The motion to adjourn was from Mrs. Westfall. Mr. Hanson seconded, and we adjourned at 7:15.
Thank you. Any other committee reports to be made at this time? Agenda 10, item 10 is committee referrals. One's already been made tonight on the downtown streetscape engineering to the Streets Committee in a meeting set. Any other committee referrals at this time? Information items on the back of your agenda are just pretty straightforward. Planning Commission, Board of Architecture Review, and the bank reconciliation statements. If there's no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and this council is adjourned for 2 weeks until our next meeting on Monday, May the 2nd at 7:30 PM. Thank you all for attending.